Welcome back, everyone, to the Barely Newsgram. Your host here is always Alexis, and I'm joined by Peter.
Hello.
And we are back with another Marvel installment. This is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
I really like this film.
Yeah.
I would say it's great. It's really fun. I think a lot of people had problems with it, mainly because from the trailers, I believe they were promised a more serious film.
Let's address that right now. When those trailers came out, I was spooked. And I was excited for Ultron. Mm-hmm. The voiceovers that James Spader did for Ultron in those trailers, I want to show you something beautiful.
Yeah.
God, it echoed. It made me feel something in myself that I hadn't felt in any villain since Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
That's how creepy and menacing and just deliciously evil it felt, and it was portrayed in those trailers. And while I ended up liking Ultron in the end, it just felt like, for me, that may be the biggest sin of this movie, is Ultron not being the villain that we were promised. In the movie, it ended up just being Tony Stark and his humor carrying over, and that being his dominant personality instead of him being, I guess, a Joker kind of villain.
Well, I think we were promised a more sinister villain.
Yes.
It was supposed to feel like incredibly high stakes. The Avengers might not make it out of this. This could be the end. But it's all walk away happy, hunky-dory. You know, we're all friends. I think that's why a lot of people had issues with it, because it was just another fun popcorn, great time at the movies, the same with Avengers was. We were promised with the second one was a little bit more than that. Mm-hmm. And when we were given the same, I think a lot of people kind of, I would say rightfully so, got a little mad at that. It's still really fun and it's really good.
It's still really fun and it's still really good, but then again, when you put it next to an Iron Man 3, there creates the pattern of them screwing with us in terms of the villain. We've talked about how amazing Ben Kingsley's Mandarin would have been.
Yeah,
it could have been a definitive villain of any movie. And the same could be said for Ultron. And yet what happened? They ended up being something different that we, to an extent, still enjoy, but not what we wanted to see.
I still really like this movie. These Avengers are a team. They're a team. They work like, well-oiled machine.
I think this whole movie is really an example of how the Avengers have grown in their friendships, but also the chemistry between the actors who played the Avengers is seemingly better. Like, arguably, the chemistry between the Avengers in this film is superior to the one in the Avengers movie.
It was done because immediately afterwards, Joss Whedon wanted to then tear them apart.
One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when they're having the party.
That, honestly, I would watch like an hour of that scene. Just them at a party. And that really says a lot.
How often do we get to see that?
Yeah, and I think that says a lot about the characters, that we care and like them so much and find them so interesting, that we could see like whole sequences of them just hanging out.
You had Stan Lee and Thor with Excelsior, and then you had Falcon come in and talk with Cap about the missing persons case. And then you had Thor and Tony bicker about Jane and Pepper about which one being better. You had Rhodey.
I love Rhodey's little bit.
Yeah, his lame story.
Want some of this?
That was supposed to be funny.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, and then of course Banner and Romanoff.
Oh,
that scene was steamy.
We get into Ultron as a character, and a lot of people felt that he was a bit rushed.
The reason why Ultron was created was Thanos just flicked something and then it just turned on. That's what happened, right?
With Thanos?
Yes.
No, I thought...
Isn't that what happened? Because look, Tony and Bruce don't create Ultron, technically speaking. They don't even come close to an interface. No. So who started
They showed it in the movie. They said like, oh, I'm going to run different variations to see if I get anything. And it was running different variations. And then
it got something.
And then it got
Is that
one.
what it is?
One just worked.
Are you sure it wasn't Thanos manipulating that? I thought it was pretty obvious that Thanos manipulated that. And that he created it.
I thought it was pretty obvious.
Hank Pym
completely
created
different.
Ultron.
Hank Pym was a little ant. You couldn't see him, but he was in there with a tiny computer. And he was running diagnostics. And then he created Ultron. Jarvis was like, yeah, I'm going to run different diagnostics, see if I get anything. And he's like, all right. So then as he's leaving, you look at the computer, and it was like running.
Anyway, the twins.
They were pretty one note to me. But I liked their motivation. For me, I bought it and it worked.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'll roll with it as long as you give good reasoning.
Mm-hmm. And the powers
they gave
are
good
great.
reasoning. Yeah, the powers are great. Scarlet Witch just being
what do we make
powers
of Quicksilver being the one to
Quicksilver.
be sacrificed?
I don't like it.
Was that a surprise when he died?
It was ruined for me before I saw the movie, so it wasn't a surprise to me.
Yes.
I kind of feel it was a little bit because of Fox. They kind of got Quicksilver better. They did him better, so they're like, screw him. We got 20 other characters. Like, kill him. I kind of would have rather had Hawkeye die. I take it back. I would not want Hawkeye to die because they're gonna do a certain scene with him in Ant-Man and the new Civil War that I have always wanted to see. So he has usefulness.
All right, so Hawkeye in this movie.
You can tell they're like, we're really sorry, Jeremy. Like, we're gonna beef up your role in the second one. And they did. I always make fun of him because he's like, he's just some guy with an arrow. They were smart to really play with that.
Yes, especially when his wife says that
he is
these
an
are
every
gods.
guy. Yeah, and you're just a regular old dude.
They really set him up to be the emotional crutch of this movie, and I think at the time when he's rescuing that little boy on Sokovia and they're about to leave, and when he sees Ultron and the ship, the Quinjet that's firing, he's about ready to give up his life to save that boy.
That's kind of the sole reason I really like superhero films. For all the action and explosions and the fun and the quips. The reason I think people have clung to superheroes and the reason why they've survived so long is the heroism. Mm-hmm. The fact that, these everyday people given extraordinary abilities go out of their way and they lay their lives on the line to help others. That's awesome. That's beautiful. And that's something that everyone can connect with. Everyone wants to be a better person.
We got more of an insight into Civil War in this movie with the divide between Tony and Banner more than the rest of the group. But they split off with Tony and Banner secretly experimenting with the scepter to create Ultron and then not telling the rest of the group about it for a reason about the whole, oh man wasn't meant to meddle with this speech because of Tony Hayes. And then you see the divide between Tony and Cap, several instances again forming throughout this movie. And Tony's like, let's make Jarvis and let's make an actual thing out of this. And then Bruce is like, I'm caught in a loop. I mean, we would just add this in the beginning of the movie. Cap shows up. I'm going to say this once. Turn it off.
Mm-hmm. I liked it because you show they're very different people. They're always going to clash. I like that they show they're not to blows yet, but they show that they have many basic disagreements.
Yes, they haven't blown each other yet, is what he's trying to say. Banner and Romanoff.
I don't hate their love story, but it wasn't something that I was like really I was really emotionally attached to either. But it, like I said, they did it in a way where I understand where these two people would fall for each other.
Mm-hmm. The action in this movie is superb. I mean,
love it.
Obviously,
it's amazing.
It's what you would expect out of an Avengers movie. It has a spectacle. It has all the twists and turns, and it's overall a good movie that I feel got a lot of shit when it came out. When
really undeserved. I
mean, Joss Whedon really poured all that he had at the moment. Honestly, I mean, the guy was limping. He just got on knee surgery. Give him a break, and at the time, it was somewhat disheartening to see him be very vindictive about the whole process.
I think he was just going through a bad time. Can you imagine making one of these films? Just the beating you go through. Two of these, and then he was also overseeing, the Marvel Universe. He had to write the film.
And really,
direct it, and then he went straight into press.
A lot of people made the criticism that this movie didn't have the same feel as we did in the original Avengers. When what were you people expecting? Nothing will ever be the Avengers again. Nothing will ever replicate the first time everybody saw those superheroes on the screen together. But what carries over is the chemistry, the dialogue, the action sequences, and the story plot points. Maybe not as good of a villain, and that there are some things here with Thor being taken out because of the setting up again Infinity War and Thanos here and there. But at the end of the day, I had a hell of a time with this movie. The lines are so memorable. Yes, they were used in all the TV spots. Marvel and Disney loved to milk the TV spots.
And Vision was amazing.
Yes.
I loved Vision. I think there's a culture with people today where if the movie doesn't live up to a certain standard, like the predecessor or a certain standard,
we're spoiled that way.
Yeah,
I mean, we have
shit.
become accustomed to having the sequel be better than the original these days.
Just a lot of great films.
And I'm guilty to that to a certain extent. I mean, we all kind of have that expectation.
It's like films can't just be good anymore.
Yeah.
They have to be the greatest film ever. They got to be a million times better than the last one that came out.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good as the first Avengers.
No.
I don't think it was good as Guardians of the Galaxy.
No.
But it's still really good.
Yeah.
And so
it gave me the movie experience that I wanted at the end of the day, and I'm happy for that.
There's just way too much good about this film for me to just like let back and let people say like, oh, it's
there are
complete
people
shit.
that have considered this a Marvel misstep, and I'm like, really?
No,
that's going way too
no,
far.
no. We really like this film, as you can tell. Even acknowledging its flaws,
yeah,
it's still really good.
Of course. Well, Peter, thank you for joining me. Kyle, thank you for interjecting yourself every chance you got. Audience, thank you for putting up with us. And I'm your host here as always, Alexis. And remember, you're always welcome to the place for all things movie news and reviews. And until next time.
I can make a song with the metaphor straight out of my head. I can make you sing, sing, I can make you sing it out loud. I can make you think that there's meaning in the words out of my head. And I can make you weep, weep, 'cause you could relate to them.